Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Sunday, and Sundays we review custom cards. I'm fired up. You guys are crushing it once again. This was probably the hardest one for me. Even the honorable mentions have a few extras because I just couldn't omit them. They were too good. So as always, thank you so much for submitting cards. It's super fun to cycle through them, and I absolutely love how you guys are working together to make these cards, bouncing ideas off of each other and trying to balance them. It's really cool to see the conversations building. So this past week's challenge was 6 cost cards. Now, it was a bit vague. I didn't really describe it as well as I probably should have. So it could have been a 6 cost card itself or have in its text 6 cost. So next week's challenge is discard, okay? So obviously a keyword in Marvel Snap right now, but I think it's a very interesting one and maybe difficult to make unique cards with because you're always going to be discarding from your hand or your opponents. So I encourage you to find some creative ways to incorporate discard in your custom card. And if you want to submit it, just jump into the Berryverse Discord, completely free. You don't even have to subscribe to the channel. You can just jump right in there, create a card with the link that I got there, and post the submission in the weekly challenge channel. Please only submit one and be kind to everyone else's submissions. There are no wrong submissions. There are only creative ideas, and I love seeing it all, even if it's crazy unbalanced. It doesn't matter. It's fun to see. All right. I love that the Berryverse is growing, but we got to get to this week's submissions. So let's start getting into it. All right, here we go. We got the honorable mentions. Now, I actually have 5 total. So we're going to start with these 3 right now. So we got SporiumCorium's Whiplash. This is sick. I love the whips coming out and going into the text. It looks great. Well done with the blue border. On reveal, pull a random card from your hand to each adjacent location. It's a 6 cost 3 power. So the offset is lower power for this crazy ability because it pulls random cards from your hand. It's very reminiscent of something like Hella where you discard cards and they come out. So this is instead in your hand, which might be a little bit too strong, which is why I kind of kept it in the honorable mentions. I feel like you could just stock up on a bunch of high power things and have them get pulled out, like the Inferknight, for instance, or find ways to discard a bunch of cards, like maybe even an APOC synergy. And then this could be a lot of power for low cost, and you end up putting it in a position you don't want to win, and then the random cards go to the other positions that you want to win. So it just seems really strong, but it's a very cool idea, and I really love the artwork. I can see this working similar to Omega Red or also Dr. Octopus, where like the Whiplash would have these electrical whips that would whip your hand, the animation, right? And then pull those cards over. I think that would look really, really good. So well done. And then we got C, his Blackheart. I love how his name is just C. It was pretty cool. So Blackheart is a 6/4, similar stat line. And on reveal, if you played another 6 cost card this game, play a random 6 cost card at this location. So see how they're a little bit similar, right? That's why I kind of put them here together. But it's different because you have to have already played a 6 cost card, which is not an easy thing to do. That means you had to ramp, and you probably ramped onto the turn 5, played a 6 cost, then you played this, and then you're going to get another random 6 cost card. So you basically are hoping that that other 6 cost you played on turn 5 is going to win you that other location, and then this one plus whatever random you get will be enough power to win this location. So that makes sense to me because actually it seems really strong, right? Getting a random 6 cost, but 6 costs almost on average, I want to say, have less power than their stat line, right? So there's like the Hulk, which is a 6/12, and that's great. And then you can get crazy things like Infinite or Giganto, right? 14, 20, whatever. But there's a lot that have low power. It could be Arnim Zola, which actually would be nuts, I suppose, because it would copy the Blackheart to 2 other locations that would pull more. So I guess that's pretty good. But then let's think of maybe Leader, or I don't know. I guess there's a lot of good on reveals, and maybe this would be broken. The ones I just mentioned are really strong, even though they have low power totals, because it is played. It's a played card. It's not just summoned, where maybe the on reveal doesn't trigger, and maybe that's a more fair resolution to this card to find balance. But anyhow, I thought it was really cool. The frame break looks gorgeous, very well done with the fire and then the black text. That was awesome. So thank you, C. And then we got Sunbird's Mephisto. A lot of people like to submit Mephisto, and I think it's a really sick card. I love to see that card in the submissions. But this one stuck out to me because it has a start of game effect, and I really like the idea of that. You can build decks pretty easily around that. It's like a mini quest built into your deck. Start of game, this happens. Okay, I have to start playing a certain direction. In this case, he's going to reveal his effect to you. So you haven't even drawn him or anything like that. But you just know that when he's in the deck, he's going to have that effect. And that is ongoing. All cards with even power have either +2 or -2 power. So I imagine at the start, you would see the card. Only you can see it, not your opponent. And it would show, oh, you get +2 for all your evens, or oh, it's -2 for all your evens. And it's all evens. It's on your opponent's side of the field and your side of the field. And it's even power, which I find interesting because power can get influenced by a lot of factors in Marvel Snap, like locations, their own cards buffing things, you changing their power totals. So it's varies a lot, but Mephisto doesn't get affected because he's 9, so he's already an odd power card. He's a 6/9. So I don't know. I don't know if that'd be too broken, too weak, maybe, because I could see you building a deck where you get the bonus power. You play a bunch of even power cards in your deck, and then you get the +2. And then but if it's -2, maybe this is a dead draw, and that's not great. You don't want to play that unless your opponent happens to have more even powered cards. I don't know, but it was pretty cool. I really like the idea of start of game, and well done with the text and the frame break. It looks awesome. Okay, more honorable mentions. I got to keep it going because these two are fire. These were the closest ones to make the cut. Mark, I apologize. I know you're in the honorable mentions again. You will make the top 5. I promise you, sir. You are crushing it. Your card is a 3-cost 3 power, so an interesting one, right? It's not a 6-drop. Very cool. After the final turn, move a 6-cost card you control to this location that wins the game if possible. The only reason I didn't put it in the top 5 because it's super similar to Captain Marvel, right? And I think that was the idea. And he also wanted to put a Filipino character in the game. I thought that was very cool. I wasn't aware of this character. I believe it's Red Feather. Very nice. Love the art and everything. But yeah, I think it's a really cool card. Like, I think it's fairly balanced, right? You have to play the 6-cost card, so you have to control one, and then it might move or might not, depending on what you do. I can see that being really cool with cards like Giganto that gets locked on the left location, but that doesn't actually win you the game. It puts a lot of power. Maybe you already won that location, and instead, he can now get moved to the right or the center because of Red Feather. Really cool. It also can't really get countered. It doesn't have ongoing or on reveal or anything like that. It just moves a card. So I really liked your card, Mark. I shouldn't even say that it's just like Captain Marvel because it's not. They're inherently different. This moves other cards. Captain Marvel moves herself. She's more expensive. But it's really cool. It's a great idea, and thank you for submitting as always. Then we got SoulKnife's White Fox. Wow, this one stood out to me early. I think it was one of the earlier submissions, and I was just like, yep, saving that one because it looks awesome. Crushing it with the art, SoulKnife. He was the one that did Luna Snow in the previous video, which was like one of the coolest ones I've seen so far. And this one is pretty rad. The only reason it didn't make top 5 is because I think it's a little bit broken. It might be a bit powerful. I don't know. Maybe that's just my take though. So it's White Fox is a 4-cost 5 power. But if you fill 2 locations, return this card to your hand and it transforms into a 9-tailed fox. Okay, so the 9-tailed fox is this epic beast right here. 6 for 9. Ongoing, your other locations have 9 power, +9 power. That's pretty wild. So obviously you do have to do 2 things. You have to play White Fox, and that costs 4, and then you have to play the 9-tailed fox, which is 6. So it's almost like a 10 energy play to get this card out. But then it ends up being 27 power, spread across 3 locations, which is just wild. That's crazy. If you can even find a way to cheat out Onslaught for turn 5, some crazy way, and then you onslaught this, and that's like, oh my gosh, that's so much more power. It's crazy. But I do see the balance, like 10. It is 10 energy. That's not easy to come by. You basically burn your turn 4, and you have to find ways to fill the other 2 locations, which isn't easy either. You can do things like debris, maybe getting cards out there, or whatever else, flooding it with just like Brood, just straight up to get those locations filled, just for the big 9-tailed fox play. I like the idea. I just have a feeling this is a lot of power output and it scares me a bit. It might be broken, but it's pretty sick, dude. The White Fox transforming into the 9-tailed fox. I think transform effects should happen more in Marvel Snap and have really cool artwork. We have like destroy and they become something else. Why not like meet a condition and then become something else? I think that'd be awesome. So great submissions from all the honorable mentions. Honestly, I could put so many more. You guys crush it. But let's get into my pick and then the top 5. All right, so here we go. This one's my submission. It's pretty simple, and the artwork isn't all that great because I couldn't find really good artwork for this character, but I thought it was really fitting. It's Silence, or like Scream becomes Silence or something like that. A Venomized character in the Marvel Universe. Very cool. But I wanted to emphasize the silence mechanic that is actually in the game but doesn't have a keyword. So right now it's currently called remove the ability or remove the abilities, right? So leech removes the abilities from your opponent's hand. Zero removes the ability from the next card you play. Enchantress removes all of the ongoing abilities that your opponent has or that location, whatever, right? So there is kind of this silence effect, and it even has its own little icon, the little like warning sign triangle. So I thought, how cool would it be if we had cards that actually interacted with this directly? We don't have to make it a keyword per se. I don't know if that's the right thing. That's why I have it as a question in there. Should it be a keyword? Maybe that's a little too convoluted. There wouldn't be that many cards benefiting or interacting with this mechanic. So maybe it's not worth making a keyword, but we can still interact with it. And I thought that here we have a 6-drop, 6 power, ongoing +3 power for each card silenced this game. So that could be crazy if your opponent is playing like an ongoing deck and you get Enchantress out and boom, you hit 4 of them. That's bonus 12 power. This becomes a 6-18. I feel like it's a little bit balanced though, because the 18 is just at one location and you have to like, build that up with other silence effects. And then Leech, if he hits the hand, I imagine the card would have to be played. We'd have to like see that icon. If it wasn't played and it was just in the hand, that it doesn't really count towards the silence. Maybe I should have said that in the text to be clear, like somehow like incorporate played into the text, whatever. But you get the idea, right? The card would have to be on the field and be silenced. So they could still play their card that got silenced by Leech, but that would just buff silence. Or you silence your own things with 0. Obviously, you don't want to silence. Jeez, I'm saying that word a lot. But you silence maybe Typhoid Mary or Red Skull or whatever. You get them out on 4 and 5, and then you can play silence. Anyways, I just kept it a little bit basic. I thought this would be interesting. It is technically in the game. So what do we do with it? Do we do anything at all? Why not? And now it's time for the top 5. Number 5, Inferknight's Gorr, the God Butcher. All right, so this is a popular character to be made in the custom card world, especially in the Berryverse. Tough to pick amongst them all, but I thought this one was especially cool because he added the all black, the Necrosword. And the abilities and everything are pretty tame, pretty cool. I think this is very balanced, if not maybe on the weaker side of things. We'll get into that in a second. But to break down the card, so it's a 3-4, okay, 3-4. On reveal, shuffle all black, the Necrosword into your deck. So that's very similar to Thor, who shuffles Mjolnir into his deck, right? So shuffling their weapon of choice. But they also have the ongoing ability of -5 power for each 6-cost card in play, which could be bad, but maybe not that bad, because I don't imagine you run any 6-cost cards in your deck to make this work. And then also, you might only run into one that your opponent has, or maybe none at all. Okay, so this becomes a 3-4. So what does the sword do? Well, on reveal, destroy all 6-cost cards at this location. So the reason I think this is maybe a little bit on the weak side, maybe Gorr could actually have a little bit more power, is because if your opponent doesn't have any 6-cost cards, this is just straight up a 3-4, putting a card into your deck, which probably wouldn't be good, because then you don't want to draw this, because the only benefit is to destroy 6-cost cards. But I thought it was cool nonetheless. And it's a -1 for the sword, which doesn't really matter. You could even get rid of that with Killmonger. And I also thought other ways to get around this is maybe to Enchantress Gorr, so he doesn't get the negative ongoing ability and reducing his power. Or Luke Cage could help out with that reduction of power. And then I even thought a nice combo would be to Baron Mortal your opponent's hand, and then they maybe end up playing that 6-cost card, and all black the Necrosword would just destroy it. There's even the recently data mined card called Ghost that always allows you to go second, so your opponent always has priority. I think this would be sick for this, because the worst part of this card is if you can't go second, your turn 6 is going to be real rough playing the all black, the Necrosword, because you probably will whiff, even unless they cheated out a 6-cost early. So that's kind of like punishing anyone who's trying to ramp, right? They put out their onslaught early because they're doing that big turn 6 Patriot or something like that, or Mystique copying the onslaught, and then bam, Necrosword destroys it. So anyways, I thought it was a really cool idea. I love the tying in of the weapon, kind of the anti-Thor in a way. Very cool submission. Thank you, Inferknight. Number 4, ET's Yelena. Oh my goodness, this one is so wild. I had to make a deck for it, because we were playing this deck that's right up here earlier on stream when we got Thanos, and I thought, oh, this card could be wild with it. Okay, so what is the card? It's a 4-cost, 7 power. On reveal, next turn, set the cost of all cards in your opponent's hand to 6. Okay, So yeah, really ruins them. They can't have a turn 5. You get this out early, then they don't have a turn 4 or 5. They might draw, conveniently, and then be able to play that draw. So there's that downside. But there's the added downside of ongoing. This is your last turn. So you better be ready to win the game on 4, or if you drop it on 5, you make it so that they can't swarm a bunch of cards on turn 6, right? That could be great. You'd really have to read and assess what your opponent is trying to do before you play this card, because if they're just doing a big turn 6 anyways with a big card, right? Like Odin, they plan on playing Odin because they set that up all game. Well, this is going to do nothing, and you're not going to have a turn 6. But I thought it'd be really cool to play Lockjaw with this. Because if it comes out from Lockjaw, then you retreat, right? Because it comes out and ongoing, this is your last turn. You can't take any more turns. You're getting out of there and you only lose 1 cube. So maybe that's okay. But the other way this could work is if you play it at the Lockjaw location, right? You play Lockjaw on 3, you play Yelena on 4. Boom, you just turned your opponent's entire hand into 6 costs. Right? And then she goes back into the deck and hopefully you don't, get her, roll her again, or she comes in your hand, you just don't play her. I think the disruption would be through the charts. It'd be through the roof. It'd be so good. And the reason I put this deck is just because we were playing with it. It was really fun to cycle a bunch of stones with Lockjaw. So you add Yelena as another nice cycle option, maybe just for fun. Or you zero it. You just zero this card and then it's silenced and it's a 4/7, which is kind of okay. Maybe not the best application of this card. Overall, I think this is just the highest rolly, crazy, probably most times will screw you over kind of card, but it's super fun to think about. I love the idea of just, nope, you're done. That's your last turn. You're toast. Oh my gosh, it would be some crazy games. And maybe mitigate your cube loss because, you'll just get out when it's your last turn. You'll just leave. So anyways, ET, that's a pretty creative one, I got to say. So thank you for submitting it. Number 3, Kai's Spiral. Oh my gosh, guys, Kai is like a legend in the custom card Berryverse. My goodness, look at this card. It's gorgeous. It looks incredible. I'm all about it, and the effect is pretty reasonable. I could see this in the game. It's a 6 cost, 4 power. Ongoing, if your opponent has 4 cards at this location, afflict all enemy cards here with -3 power. I love the idea of punishing somebody who's stacked one location with a lot of cards. It would do really well against these ongoing destroyer decks. If you do manage to hit 4 cards, that's going to be -12 power. So it's essentially like a 16 power, a 6 for 16, if you hit it that way, right? So I don't know if that's reasonable. Maybe that's a little bit too much. Maybe it should only be -2 power would be the more balanced route. But regardless, this is a super cool card. And you have to consider it only comes into play if the location is stacked, right? So it's like boom or bust. Like if they manage to destroy something or they get a lot of power with only playing 3 cards, then you're not going to be able to have this effect take place. So maybe that's the offset to the crazy 16 power swing potential. But gosh, Kai's he's just slaying it. And then some combinations is like, okay, we got to figure out a way to fill that location to give them negative power and just boost this right up. So let's throw out a goblin there. Let's Viper something over. Who cares what it is? We'll just get it over there so that they're filling up their location. You could debris over there, all that good stuff. Maybe even play armor so that those things can't get destroyed by Killmonger. I don't know. But I really like this card. The art looks fantastic. I want this inkified in my game yesterday. My goodness, it's so good. I'm trying to diversify the submissions here, but when Kai brings these to the table, they got to make it to the video. All right, let's get into number 2. Number 2, the Average Bard's Nightmare. Dude, this one's sick. This almost made number 1. I was between 2, and you're going to see the number 1, but this one is rad. Look at the look. The look is unreal. Like the Nightmare text like bouncing up and down and all crazy, and then his character with the skulls. It's so good. And then I love ideas that come with negative power. It's such an interesting thing in Marvel Snap, right? We can actually dip into the negatives to have a crazy ability. Now, obviously, you're probably thinking, whoa, you can negative this, Mr. Negative. But wait, the ability doesn't work like that. Ongoing, this location's power is added evenly to other enemy locations. You wouldn't want to negative this. You'd have 0 for 6 at 6 power. You'd be giving 3 power to the other 2 locations. If you only have this card at a location, right, that's -10. Those other 2 locations on your opponent's side are going to get -5. That's how it's going to work, right? If you get to -20 at the nightmare location somehow, then they're going to get -10 on the other sides. If you end up in the positive, let's say we did flip this, we Mr. Negative and you got 6 power, well then, like I said earlier, you're getting 3 to the other 2 and you're actually giving them a benefit and you just spent your 6 drop on it. That's trash. So I think this is super cool, a really cool way to incorporate negative decks. Like you wouldn't want to bring Luke Cage to the table here. You need to stack a bunch of terrible power output at a location. You want to make that location your worst location by far so that it splits evenly amongst the other 2 and they get negatized or whatever you want to call it. Nightmare. How about that? Oh man, this is so cool. Another cool combo you mentioned is if you zero your Hobgoblin, right? Prevent him from going over there. That's -8 power at the Nightmare location. Sick combo. You could do that with Green Goblin. You could play the Hood to have just -2 power, and it's actually beneficial. And then you play the Demon at one of those other locations to stack power there. That's a sick combo. That's like one of the best for this. Hazmat combos. You could do the whole Wong thing, and then you make one of your cards over there super negative, like the Hood, for instance. Boom, it's like a -20 thing. Bam, we're giving -10s to the other 2 location. And it's like this crazy power swing. I love the idea of investing in one location to ruin it so that you cannot win that location. But it's going to give you a benefit out of others, and hopefully you can win those too. Not to mention this would help with locations that you can't reach, like Sanctum Sanctorum or all kinds of things like that. Like all of a sudden you're getting power over to the other ones, and then your opponent can't even do anything about it. Then boom, they just have like a bunch of negative power. The worst one would be Bar with No Name. Bar with No Name comes up and this is your whole game plan. You're probably getting out of there unless you stack at that bar with No Name location. It's fantastic for Nightmare himself, but not his effect. Dude, I'm just so in love with this card. It gets me so amped up when I talk about it. I think it looks sick. The ability is awesome. Super creative way to use negative power. Geez, Team Second Dinner, take notes. This is awesome. All right, I could talk about it forever, but let's get into number 1. Number 1, Kenz, Quasar. I might be pronouncing that wrong. I apologize. It's a Q with Quasar. I don't know. Quasar. I'm going to struggle there, but the effect is so cool. This is a very cool one. So it's a 6 cost, 5 power. On reveal, cards with power boosting on reveal effects gain that power again. Now that's not activate their on reveals again. That would be like Odin, right? Boom. And then a white tiger shoots out again or something like that, right? Or your Wolfsbane gets, whatever amount of cards are there, it would trigger again and get that power. No, it's whatever power they originally acquired would then be applied once more. Okay? So when I was thinking of like, oh my gosh, there's so many cards that this would work with. So we could look at Hawkeye, right? He gets his +2. If he received that in a earlier turn rather, then bam, he gets his +2 again. And now he's a 1/5. Pretty good value. All of a sudden Hawkeye's being played. Rocket Raccoon and all of the Guardians of the Galaxy characters, right? They can get their totals again. That was actually the design and the purpose of this card that Ken's mentioned, is that it's for the Guardians boost. You can have your Guardians deck, and then this is your big turn 6 payoff, because they don't even actually have a turn 6 card, other than like maybe Odin or something like that. It goes right up to Gamora, and then they don't have a 6. So I think this would be a perfect 6 and maybe make a Guardians of the Galaxy deck viable. And then cards like Medusa get their power buff. Even Carnage, he has an on-reveal ability. He destroys all those cards and eats them up. He gets +6 power. Then this happens, and he gets another +6. Epic. Wolfsbane, Venom, same thing as Carnage. Numb something up, then this applies again. Jessica Jones and those rescue cards, like very similar idea to Hawkeye. They'd get their power boost again if you manage to play them before Quasar comes out, and then again Gamora. So then some combinations. You could maybe even get this out early, and then Odin to stack again the on-reveal power. It'd be nuts. Or even better yet, you play Wong and then you Quasar on the Wong location and it doubles. Like that would be insane. Obviously, Cosmo is the number 1 ruiner to this entire deck and this entire idea. But obviously, there's always going to be counters to every card. So let it just be like, yes, Cosmo ruins things. Enchantress could ruin Wong or what have you. But still a really cool idea. Like I could see this in the game. Maybe even too powerful. It's hard to like assess all of the total power that this card would give. Like it's a 6/5. But I could see the overall value, the power value that this provides being like the 20s, because you're probably building a deck for it to begin with. And look at the curve, even on just the combo cards that I put. Like that's a reasonable curve. If you can like hit on some of those Guardians of the Galaxy characters, Hawkeye, whatever, bam, that's a lot of power at the end of the game. And it's going to be spread across other locations because it depends on when you play them. Just Crazy, super cool card. Awesome art once again. It looks like straight out of the comic, which is just like Marvel Snap's iconic look. Love it. And then another card I wanted to talk about really quick is Absorbing Man. He's going to copy the on reveal of the last card you played. So I thought, like, if you cheat out Quasar and then you get Absorbing Man, maybe even get them on the Wong location, bam, 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 so much power. It would be crazy. So anyways, Kenz, I really like that submission. It was a great idea. I don't even know balance-wise. Could it be too broken or too weak? Definitely not too weak. This is definitely a good card and would be run in a lot of decks. An important thing to note too is that it's not just like all on reveals. Like Shuri, for instance, a new card, she would give the next card a doubling in power, but that's not actually herself. I imagine it's any of the cards that can give themselves power would get the buff. So like Shuri giving it to somebody else, they won't receive that gift again. That's the way I envision this card. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm reading into it differently, but that's the way I imagine it. Just giving back to the Guardians of the Galaxy after they gave us that Christmas special. You know, I love it. It's so good. All right, guys, that is this week's challenge, the 6 costs. It was awesome. It was epic. We saw some really cool cards, some tricky cards that weren't actually 6 costs with really cool text. The creativity is through the roof. If you want to submit your own, jump in the Berryverse Discord. It's free. Just do it. It's fun. And stay tuned. We got the new season on the horizon. I'm going to be covering the Silver Surfer tomorrow night on stream, and we got a bunch of things planned. And then the next week's submission, you can submit them right now, is the discard challenge. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Snap subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and I will catch you guys next time.